What's up, guys, and welcome back to Missouri River Bottom. So today we are getting our second sunflower field knocked out. We do have the first one knocked out. We do have the wheat knocked out. Unfortunately, I don't have those videos just due to some recording issues with my recording equipment. Files were corrupted, things like that. So I wasn't able to get those up. But we are getting these sunflowers knocked out. As you can see, we are running a full harvest crew again. You know, I planted these two fields on my own because due to the changes Grandpa made with turning the farm over to me, we were struggling to get help. Well, I found some people in the county and surrounding area that were willing to come in and help. Now, the downside of that is, unlike the connections Grandpa had, where I had people coming out and helping for free the first couple times, I'm now having to pay everybody. So you'll notice our cash is dropping pretty considerably in the upper corner of the screen. And well, with the amount of equipment we're running and what the wages are for this area for having people coming in and helping, that's just going to be the reality of it. It's just going to be costing us some more money. So, you know, that's a financial consideration we're going to have to take. We're going to have to take in moving forward, and that we're going to have to plan on, you know, keeping finances running smoothly through the farm. Because this is now an additional expense. Some of the things we did do in the meantime was we did condense our equipment down a little bit. The 2 Case Magnum tractors and the helicopter tanks for those are now gone. And it was just simply making things a little bit more efficient. Biggest reason being is with the amount of ground we're covering, I got a pretty smoking deal on a couple John Deere DB120s. Along with some Patriot companion tanks to go with them, pull behind them, so we have higher capacity for liquid fertilizer. And it just made sense to move to those so that we could keep things rolling and do things a little bit more efficiently here around the farm. We did upgrade to a soak-up dryer site on the farm. Again, it's just kind of one of those things, an upgrade that makes a little more sense. Oh, hey, there's a fun little driving issue right there. But it just made more sense with what I had planned for the farm. So we're going to get these sunflowers knocked out in this video. Next video, we will be jumping right into soybeans, getting those rolling. And we have about 600 acres of soybeans to do. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, kind of what we got. From the wheat field, we did get about 1 million liters of wheat and 475 square bales off that. So you guys sit back, relax, enjoy. We're going to get these sunflowers knocked out. We're going to get these in the bin, and then we'll be moving into soybeans. As always, if you enjoy the video, give it a like. If you enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and I will catch you guys at the end. All right, everybody. Well, sunflowers are done. We're getting everything filled up, getting ready to move into getting the soybeans knocked out and taken care of. We did combine all these fields right here by the farm, so it's going to be one 250 acre field of soybeans and one 350 acre field of soybeans. I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, we'll see you next time, and keep an eye on the channel. I am going to have a new series debuting coming up here soon, and I think it'll be kind of a fun, interesting series, as it'll be a deviation from what this channel has been so far. So we'll catch you all next time on Missouri River Bottom.